Hey everybody, how we doing on this special Saturday edition of the Indoctrination? We have about 200 beautiful humans in the Sned shed here, and as I promised you, I wanted to bring on two very special guests. One that you know very well, Jazz, and her father Jim. So without further ado, I just wanted to say that these are dear friends. We call them family. And they produce what's we have come to know and love as Saint Solutions. We're going to talk about a little bit about that, but also about Jim and how long he's been awake and his take on everything that's happening right now. Without further ado, my friends, Jim and Jazz Agneaux. Let me bring them in. And here we go. Hold on, my friends. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome, awesome.
Can you hear
Um,
us?
I
Yes.
can see half of Jim and more of you. Hey,
There we
Jim,
go.
Hi, Dave.
how are you?
Just great. How are you doing?
Doing great. What a beautiful day it looks like there.
Actually, it just got a little chilly. Which way
It's
do I move?
been real nice, but yeah, it's got chilly.
So welcome to the broadcast. Jazz has been here before a few times, and I'm going to bring you up here so I can look right at you. And I've, obviously the Snedheads are very aware of you and the great work that you're doing, Jim, with Saint Solutions, Silverwater. But this was, to me, so much more than that. I wanted to talk about your business, but also just about your life in general, because for a lot of the Snedheads, they've been awakening over the past couple of years, many of them. And just the perspective of, for me, I've only been awake 15 years, and I know you've been awake much longer, and just your perspective on the world as well. So we'll talk about a few things, but I really would love this to just be a conversation like I'm sitting across the table from you, like we used to do.
Well,
Yeah,
you are where we are.
that's happened a lot. Yeah.
It did. So welcome. So Jazz, you just relocated to South Carolina there, and how's that going for you?
Beautiful. It's so nice. It's green here. It rains. When I entered the Carolinas, I almost cried. It was so green. I came through the forest of the Cherokee, and it was a wall, just like literally like a mountainous wall of like green. I've never seen anything like it. And it
Really?
was spectacular. And this is the first chilly day. It's actually been really nice and warm.
That's awesome. And Jim, how is it getting your girl back?
It's fun. It's exciting. We're making some plans, um, some strategies. I mean, as you know, what's happened in the world the last couple of years, you're either waking up or you're going down.
Yeah.
I, I mean, spiritual consciousness is
Yes.
what I'm talking about. So,
Yep.
and I want to thank you for the book you sent me about mind control, because that has actually inspired me for some of the things we're doing now in a different way.
Really?
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah. The Operation Mind Control.
yeah.
Very interesting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and about your?
I'll talk about that for 2 minutes because I'm kind of inspired by it.
Okay.
Um, in the book, and what many people may know historically, from how the mind control came about, um, from mostly called it brainwashing from the communists, but Hitler had developed most all the stuff that had to do with chemicals and things, which was transferred to America.
Mm-hmm.
But what triggered me is what they did to get control of man, we can do to get the control back. They wanted to get people addicted to drugs. They wanted to get people hypnotized. They wanted to get people.
Yep.
We want to make some metaphysical solutions that will enhance people that are on the path to raising their frequencies. Thinking, okay, how else can we survive what's happening? We have to either become more light, we have to have powers. There's a great book by Dr. David Hawkins, which is part of my inspiration, about power versus force.
One of my favorite books, Jim. Power
Yeah,
versus Force. As a matter of
yeah.
fact, you may have turned me on to Dr. Hawkins when we lived together back in the day. I wouldn't
Oh,
be
good.
surprised. I wouldn't be
Then
surprised.
you'll, then you'll know what I'm talking about. He spent 19 years developing the chart for spiritual consciousness from 0 to 1,000.
Yep.
Thousands Christ consciousness. Uh, Anyone can learn that through kinesiology. I had converted it into a dowsing pendulum with it, and I just did a current check the majority of humans in America are still at the 200 level. And as a reminder, 203 is where integrity starts. And according to Dr. David Hawkins a few years ago, man had reached up to 208, but over the last few years, he's actually gone down. There's only about 20% of America that's above that level, so
Yeah.
which is sad.
It's the power versus force concept. First of all, I found to be very intriguing because instead of trying to force something, you just be, and you be in your power, and you attract what it is that you would otherwise think to force. And
We
go ahead.
No, we are connected to prime source. We're connected to source energy. We're connected to all the dimensions, and as you know, through like quantum physics or metaphysics, we're entangled already because we come from the same source field.
Okay.
Now, what we need to do is entrain. If we all start entraining, like Greg Braden points out, the square root of 1% can change humanity. It can change the area where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And with the new science from Bruce Lipton, from Dr. Joe Dispenza, it seems like a lot of things are coming together, and that's why this other side is, I think, working so hard. They do not want us to ascend.
Right.
I mean, right. My phrasing, ascension means, re-becoming source.
Well, yeah, and just from a scale level, right, that we're down here at like 203, and he did this through kinesiology, right, muscle testing, right, and so I believe he found that Tesla and he would just think about these people when he was muscle tested, right? Was that the way my memory serves me?
Yes, it's muscle testing, and he used it to go through the Bible chapter and verse to find out which books have spiritual consciousness and how much of it. You can take any word, you can take any food, you can take anything, because we're all frequency, we're all vibration, and basically it's converting it to that as spiritual consciousness. I don't mean to go too far out here for that kind of thing. But
yeah. Well, I think what's significant is when we're talking about something like this is that we give the parameters, and where you were talking about the low and the 1,000 being the high. The big difference that I remember Hawkins talking about was he did like Einstein and Tesla, and they were resonating somewhere, I want to say like the 400s, and the thing that raised the next level of beings, the Christ, the Buddha, was compassion.
Compassion and unconditional love is 500. Okay. Christ is 1,000. Yeah.
Okay.
So when people start having compassion, when they start living through forgiveness, when they start living through gratitude, when they start living through all these higher things, their frequency changes, because whatever we think, say, feel becomes who and what we are. It becomes our field. And we're in trouble today because our collective consciousness field is so toxic. I mean, it's so bad that when you go out there, what do you see? You see people that can barely walk, zombies wearing masks, running around, fields of fear. I mean, God is love. The opposite of love isn't hate; it's fear.
Yes. Yeah.
And what's being sold to us? Fear.
One of the things I talk about, which I know you're very, very aware of, is the satanic cabal that runs this planet. They have a process that they do called cremation of care, through various models and through sexual, physical, emotional abuse, so that the people that their descendants don't have the compassion that raises their vibration, raises their frequency. to a level of really taking this earth to another level. And instead, it keeps them down at that level, and then it allows them to control the planet through force, through negativity, through control, through brainwashing.
Right. I did it. I did the test because I couldn't understand how can all these people give vaccines to another person without them ever experiencing what might be happening. So I asked, and the person's spiritual consciousness that gives vaccines is 200 or below. It's not to the point of integrity. Integrity is, I think, 203. So,
Do you mean big pharma or the people that are physically administering?
Like if I'm giving you a vaccine, I don't have any compassion for you. Next day, the doctor says, God, remember that girl? She died. Oh, shoot. Who's next?
Yeah.
It's like George Bush. Did he have any, Cheney? I mean, it shows. Why did Cheney have to have a heart transplant? Because he didn't have one.
Exactly. Can we go to a place of when you first became aware of the world around you being very different from what you were being told?
I didn't really know how different it was until really just recently, in a few years, because I thought there were many, many people like me. Now, as a child, I did have experience with UFOs and the Greys. In high school, I had a near-death experience and decided not to die because I wanted to tell my friends that you don't die. But I didn't know that people couldn't comprehend these things. And when I used to talk about being able to have control of your mind over disease and things, I had no idea that no one was even hearing what I was talking about, because people hear through their ego, and their ego is mostly below 200. I was doing measurements on egos. Almost all are below. So when we're talking to someone, they aren't hearing what we're saying. There's a very small group of people that can hear. Only 20% of America is above the 200 level. Only 20%.
Now, to just go to where to understand for our audience to understand how you're able to say that is really about you muscle testing, and the science behind that is that the cells hold the information, right? And so our cells cannot lie. And so that's why muscle testing has been just proven to be found to be just incredibly accurate.
Yes, it's infallible, except for people 200 and below. 200 people at 200 and below can't use a pendulum, and they can't muscle test. I mean, it doesn't work for them. But if you were to go in a court of law and you ask an 11-year-old girl, is this guy guilty? If she's over 200, you can muscle test her and probably say yes. And if people learn about it, also along with muscle testing, Bradley Nelson wrote 2 books, the motion code and the body code. And these are all stored emotions or stored things in us that can be fixed the same way. The kinesiology and the muscle testing is a very, very important tool for us that want to work on ourselves, self-healing and things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would recommend anybody to read David Hawkins' books and learn.
Yeah, I agree. I think David Hawkins is he really took it to the next level. That's one of my top 5 books, Power versus Force, and just how how important it is to not just understand the world around us, but how to read the world around us, and what is causing certain beings to be less than they are capable of being. That was just very clear to me, and just kind of in terms of being able to evaluate when you're looking out at the world, going back to your near death experience. Is that something you want to talk about?
Um, well, I had a couple, but the main one was really, I had drowned showing off for a girl. Went over a waterfall on a log, only didn't make it. When I came up in the water, I was in a cave. Um, couldn't get out. Finally gave up, pushed off, and when I just pushed off and surrendered, I wound up feeling light, seeing light, having this temporary. There's no words to describe it. Being part of all that is very peaceful, very beautiful. I'd lost consciousness about being in the water. Somehow came out. Some people. Next thing I remember, people had pulled me out and were pushing my back, and I had to make a decision. Stay or go. I mean, but the point is that once you have an experience like that, your entire life changes. Most people, when they ask people, "Why are you afraid of death?" It's because they're afraid they might have pain. They're afraid of pain.
Loss.
Why do most people go to church? Because they're afraid they might go to hell if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Fear. Most people don't go to church because of the love of God. Most people go to church because they got issues. Sorry, this is my personal perspective.
And by the way, we don't censor here, so your personal perspective is very, very valuable and very much respected.
But anyway, as far as being awake, what's his name? Not Matt Kahn, but maybe it is Matt Kahn. Like he's no, not Matt. God, I don't know.
I know you turned me on to Jim Mars years ago too.
Jim Mars, yeah, what a great investigator he was.
Yeah.
But we think we wake up, and then we wake up, and then we wake up. I mean, it's not. So if someone says, "When did you wake up?" I haven't woken up yet. I mean, I've gone through a number of wakes. It's almost like dimensional a little bit, where I get some understanding. I think I know, but then I find out I just got a belief system, like David Hawkins teaches, that's more anchored in truth. And then you get a higher frequency belief system that's more anchored. You know what I'm trying to say? That it's.
Yeah, and I think there are maybe two questions that I need to ask here, and one is that kind of your experience with realizing, the name of our show is called The Indoctrination, and so just I guess the first time that you realized that you really weren't being told the truth about the world around you, and then upon that platform of that realization, being able to look beyond what other people are distracted by to go to the next level of it, maybe a true awakening, which is what you're saying. You're not awake yet. And is it your belief, and I'm going to throw all three of these at you at the same time, is it your belief that when you do die, you awaken?
Yes.
Okay.
You get rid of the ego. And
can you talk about that? Yeah.
Well, let's go back to the first one. I accepted and believed in the world like everybody does. When people say they aren't programmed, if you have parents, you're programmed. If you go to church, right, you're programmed. If you go to school, you're programmed. If you're in the military, you're programmed. Now, when I was in high school, and Kennedy was assassinated, a friend of mine, I mean, I was just leaving high school, a friend of mine's father in Glendale, California, he was a right wing contractor, but he knew something was wrong and he started investigating. He wound up writing a book about it. She started telling me things, and she started telling me what was happening to her family because he was doing that. So it seemed like, well, this is strange because if Oswald did it and they already know all this stuff, what's all this about? And why does she have two groups following her? So when it really hit me how the power that it took to kill a president and to cover it up, that's not something that just happened like a person walks off the street and shoots somebody.
Right.
That takes a tremendous amount of the cabal, the New World Order, of organization.
Access and
Access. It
strategy.
Happen.
Yeah.
And of course, then as years go by, you learn, well, wait a minute. Turns out Oswald actually worked for the CIA. Well, wait a minute. Our CIA also killed the president of Chile, also killed the president of Panama, also killed the lawfully democratically elected president of Iran. I mean, so once you're able to accept one thing, I mean, your mind changes, your mind opens, and you start and you develop a sense of lies, that you can spot lies. You know, like if you read something that's supposedly mainstream media, I mean, oh my God, this is like bang, bang, bang. It's lie, 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 false, false, false.
Yeah.
Your senses change once you can accept a truth. You know, I think it's a search for truth is what wakes us up.
When you first heard about COVID, what was your reaction to that whole thing? Because I know my reaction is very different than so many others because of my experiences before that. What was your reaction when you first heard about it?
Well, when someone comes out on national TV and says in two months or within the next 60 days, 2 to 3 million people are going to die unless we lock down the country, it reminds me of how they just happen to walk out on the street and say, what happened? And the guy says, oh, this plane flew into the World Trade Center. Their fuel came down. It blew out the building. All the steel, all the concrete, all the porcelain reached a melting degree within so many seconds of the same. And then it disintegrated.
Mm-hmm. By the way, cue the airplane going overhead me right now because I have the door open.
No, but
There are no coincidences.
so then I thought, how do they know this? This doesn't make sense. When someone has a chart there, and then of course later on you find out who paid for this prediction of how many we're going to die. You find out it's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and also partially I was raised part of my life through Christian Science. I also knew a number of people and things about healing. So, and I also knew that I've never had a flu vaccine and never had the flu. I knew that most people that I knew that had flu vaccines got the flu. And I also knew that for years they've been trying to have a pandemic. They tried with the Zika virus, they tried with Ebola, they tried with the swine flu, big disaster.
H1N1.
I actually did have SARS, and I got it in China before they knew what it was. So I had a certain amount of experience from having what they said was going to kill everybody. And it just makes sense to me. And that was one that they claimed came from an animal too. They said that came from rumors in the fresh food market. And they say, oh, you know, it's a bat disease. Well,
yeah.
When I was in high school, I used to go in these high buildings at the University of Oregon, like the 5th floor attics. I'd collect bat guano. I'd catch bats. You know, I'd sell bat guano.
You know, like one does. Yeah.
I mean,
and why would you, you know, is that, you know, why would you collect bat guano?
Oh, because it's one of the best fertilizers in the world. And
Okay.
I had a couple people that buy it from me. I'd make $9 or $10 every month. Every month. but,
I,
but my point is that nothing rang true. And I mean, they're just pushing too hard.
yeah.
And then the next thing is, for the first 6 or 8 months of the so-called pandemic, 50% of the deaths were in New York and New Jersey. And then they had a group of deaths in Washington. And Everett, I think it was 45 people, the rest home
Yeah.
died. And they had a bunch of deaths in Italy. They used all these to sell the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then Italian scientists came out and said, these people didn't die from the flu, they died from comorbidity and they died from other things. So I started asking, why are so many people dying in rest homes? Why are, New York, New Jersey, and Washington so far from each other? None of these people have been traveling. None of them been anywhere.
Yeah.
The requirements for all these people in the rest home was they all had to have a flu vaccine. So I knew, if I look at science, I look at math, I look at evidence. I couldn't see any science that supported a pandemic. They didn't present any science at all. Never have our country. Oh, they don't even know where it came from. And yet around the world, scientists have discovered the genomes, found out it's engineered by man. It's not a natural virus.
Right.
It's engineered by man.
And so part of the population knew right away that it was manufactured by man. I brought up Fauci. I brought up everybody that ties to Wuhan, the whole bit. And half the people think that it came from bats. And we're the ones that are batshit crazy. I'm sorry. What's it? What's that?
Oh, bat soup. There's a store here in the flea market. These people from Vietnamese, they are taxidermists, and they have lots of bats and bat skeletons. I was going to go in. I went in there, and I was going to buy this bat. It's about this big, a real bat. I was going to put it on a mask and wear it around, everywhere I went.
That would be amazing.
But I decided and swore I will never wear a mask. I will never bow down to evil. I'll never bow down to fear, no matter what.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just won't do it. No one should do it.
Yeah. Well done. It's we are right now. It seems like most of us are either trying to make the decision whether or not we fight where we are or move to a place where we don't have to fight. And I think that can be both, right? I think it can be we can move and still fight, but have better support where we're moving to so that we can, balance that fight. Who do we got there? Do I have to put another name up on the screen?
Pablo.
Well,
Pablo. Awesome.
Jasmyn will probably be presenting some information to you in about 30 or 60 days. But here's two of the things that we're working on. Electrum, which has gold in it. When you look back through history, or if you've read Gardner's books about Secrets of the Holy Grail, or Hudson's things about monatomic gold, gold repairs our pineal gland. Our pineal gland, or pineal gland, depending on which way you say it, is like our third eye. It's a spiritual thing. It's been damaged by it. Trying to create this gold that helps us raise our frequency. Now, if enough people, and this isn't a sales pitch,
Mm-hmm.
if enough people are working on changing our frequency, that's how we win. We don't win by really fighting or taking up arms, even though a lot of people want to, and some people may be called to. And I believe that I'm having some special 9999 electrodes made to try to upgrade what we're doing with the gold. but it's called the metal of immortality. And high frequency and immortality can outlast and bring down, the frequencies can bring down the dark forces. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but like if we go back to Greg Braden, the square root of 1%, if enough people in the U.S. frequency is high enough, we can't be touched by it. And there's a universal law that is, you reap what you sow, the things either attract or repulse. And all these people, the things that they have done, it's based on your energy field. And their energy field, they're attracting back to them. So I see the possibility of an implosion when we reach the point of those that are awakening their strength and power and light will overcome what I look at the darkness, because to me, 100% believe we are in a war of light versus dark. Now, the other thing, I have one other thing, and then I'm through. I'm working with a group of people. We're creating this society. We're using entrainment processes where 4 people can heal, or 6. I mean, groups of people that can put our energy. When a group of people meditate together, their energy in the field they put out is 100 times more powerful than a single individual. So we're experimenting and seeing if we can come up with a system where groups of people can heal other people. In other words, people won't need hospitals anymore, and that's just another cabal, the medical industry, the way I see it.
Right.
So when a number of these units come together, and then if at a particular time in the future, and I don't know when, they all coordinate their, let's say, like the things they did with transcendental meditation, prayer, we can change the world. That's how I believe, and I also believe we have help and guidance.
For having been as awake as long as you have on the third dimensional realm, in terms of knowing what's going on around you and seeing COVID, my question about your first thoughts when COVID came up was, it's another false flag, basically, right? That was kind of, you knew it was choreographed. You knew it was strategized by those that meant to do us harm. Am I right?
You are right.
Okay.
And one thing to prove to, like I said, I believe in science.
Yeah.
Math, evidence. If the math, whatever the math supports, is truth. I look at math as one of the faces of God. And for the people that you have, here's one thing if they want a reality check. There are 8,000 people every single day die in America. Every single day. It's been that way for 20 years. 10 to 12% die from the flu, pneumonia, respiratory disease. Now, what have they been calling COVID? The flu, pneumonia, respiratory disease.
Yeah.
Now, you take a state like California, and they're telling you 70,000 people have died and how horrible it is, and they have 40 million people. You figure out for every 5 million people, 150 people die a day. So you can take any state, 150 per 5 million, then take 10 to 12% of that for a 2-year period. And if you look at that, fewer people have died in the last 2 years per week than the previous 20 years. And every state I've checked on supports that. Yeah. And you can look up what's the average deaths per state per year. And it's math, but the math does not support a deadly pandemic.
No.
And it didn't. And like I said, when I first started looking into it, I kept saying, well, if Oregon locked down, they were locked down for 8 months. They have, 5 million? I forgot how many people in Oregon, but they had 300 and some odd deaths in an 8-month period.
Yeah.
How many people think overdose every weekend?
Yeah. you know, so so from a standpoint of, and you're absolutely correct, and I've gone over the math on this as well. We've talked about it quite a bit. How we actually had fewer deaths in 2020 than the 5 years previous, right? Every on a
Right.
yearly basis.
Per week.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'll have conversations with people. Like I'll go to the math with some people, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, fewer people died because they were in in homes and they weren't dying in accidents and they weren't." And it's like the level of you know description that people will go to just circumvent any logic is quite amazing to me, and it's the and that's what that's the kind of thing we're up against. I'll give you an example. Spoke to a friend of mine just today. Great respect for this man and his family, and I said, do you think, because we haven't really talked about this, but I know they're anti-vaccine, and all vaccines, by the way. And so I said, do you believe that this was manufactured? And he says, yes, I believe it was manufactured in a lab. And I said, well, then do you think it would be safe to say that anything that comes after this, after that creation, is manufactured as well? And he's like, well, I don't know if I'd go that far. And I said, well, when you understand, and I didn't get into the Hegelian dialectic with him, but when you understand the problem, reaction, solution, they already have the solution in mind before they create the problem. And I know you're well aware of this. And so so the vaccine was the end game here, right? There's more control beyond that, right? But the vaccine was the end game to get everybody vaccinated, and that's why they're pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. It's not even justified for adults, much less now they're pushing it for children.
And it has nothing to do with health.
Not at all. Not at
No.
all. And everything to do with control.
Like the book you gave us, Mind Control.
Yes.
Look at everybody. They're living in fear. And the mainstream media is constantly coming out, oh, this person just died of the rarest monkey disease. Oh, this person went swimming and they died of a rare. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all, to me, it's all to keep us from ascending. It's all to keep us from achieving any form of spiritual consciousness. If you're sick, if you're physically sick, you don't think about spiritual consciousness. If you're living in fear that you might catch something, you don't think about it. I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Deepak Chopra, Bruce Lipton, all of these people have taught the importance of consciousness. And we can't get sick unless that frequency of virus can entrain with part of us. Each of us has it's called mycoplasma. It has no cell wall, so it's immune to the antibiotics, but it's pleomorphic. It can become any disease. And before this COVID thing, I was thinking, well, why can't scientists just figure out a frequency to hit people and get their mycoplasma to create disease in them? There's doctors and scientists coming out now. They're showing that germ theory isn't really a valid theory anymore. We don't really get sick because of germs. This, like Bruce Lipton teaches, it's our environment, our conscious environment, and our cellular environment. That's our guide. It's not our DNA. So, and each of the cells in the body is actually smarter than the human mind. And like David Hawkins points out, the human mind can't distinguish truth from falsehood.
Right.
So, man's easily manipulated, and we both know it all keeps going back to the cabal. It eventually goes back to light and dark. I mean, that's my personal perspective. And yeah, they might throw more stuff at us. I knew a lady that worked with Jonas Salk from the polio vaccines, and I asked her, I said, well, I read that 60 million people were infected with cancer
Right.
because they use infected monkey kidneys to grow their vaccine. And she kind of laughed. I said, because they had AIDS. And she laughed. She said, no, they weren't infected. All primates have the AIDS virus in them. They knew. And I saw a thing that you probably can't find one of the guys they were laughing about. But, and I think it's Fishburne, head of the AMA years ago, said we're losing billions of dollars by curing polio. We don't want that to happen with cancer. So again, when we, and like your show, which cabal do you want to talk about? The medical cabal, the political cabal, the banking the cabal.
Right.
Now they control all the transportation. They want vaccines for, and they're trying to control entertainment. Oh, you can't go to a restaurant, can't go
Right.
to a show, unless you have a new passport. Wherever they go from there, the chip, implant the chip. Oh, you don't have to carry it around anymore. We'll implant it in your ear.
Um, I just saw one of the Snedheads put up recently this sign, and it said it was like underneath a restaurant sign or something, and it said we went from 15 days to flatten the curve in 1 year to let me see your papers. I did not see NAZI that coming. I did not see that coming. And I thought that was brilliant. And we've gone there. We've gone there quite quickly. I want to speak, and I do want to get into the brilliant silver water that you're creating, and how you're kind of, this to me is kind of like grabbing all your wisdom and all your experience and putting it into this healing product that you make yourself. I want to really dive into that before we finish today, but I really want to ask you, because so many people are very, very despondent with everything that's going on, and justifiably so. And just a sadness, I think, comes over us for all of humanity when we go out in the world and we see everybody masked up, and seeing all the signs up, and the discrimination that's taking place. So you've seen the world pre-COVID, you've seen the world since COVID, and it is my sense that people are awakening at a level that maybe the fraction of 1% that Greg Braden is talking about is going to make this whole thing turn around. What is your hope for humanity, and what do you see happening?
Well, my hope for humanity is, I feel like things are on a convergence of, I don't know if it's implosion or explosion, but you don't get rid of the dark by fighting it, because you create more dark with the energy. I think it's with light. But the products that I make and try to make based on Masaru Emoto's protocols and things, where they can actually go to a lake and purify the lake. One couple of the people that taught me about it in their early days, well, he didn't teach me, but Dan Nelson, which still makes water, where I learned about the very, very importance of water. Water is phenomenal. Water has spiritual energy. Water has memory. When people heal you with hands-on, it's because water wants to achieve the highest energy. So it dawned on me reading Masaru Emoto's books, or I think even the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know, that, well, our ability to change or heal is really proportionate to the kind of water that's in our system. because we're 80% water. So if we have a high vibration, this vibration, we have a field and it affects things around us. So if enough people are changing their vibration by embracing the things, Linus Pauling from the University of Oregon that won the Nobel Peace Prize and Prize for Chemistry, wrote papers on we can have no diseases if we know how to use colloidal minerals properly, but they would not publish his work. But this is all documented and it's all true. The medical cabal does not want people to know about zinc. They don't want them to know about magnesium. I don't know if you saw as a Dr. Aldous or something.
Artist. Dr.
Artist.
Artist. Yeah.
Yeah. So 1 in 3 teenagers, one teenager dies every 3 days from either heat, exhaustion, or heart attack. Why? Because magnesium controls your body temperature. Also, it is vital for your heart. For your heart to open, it needs the magnesium. For it to close, it needs the calcium. Now, if you saw, I think he had the chart, and other people have it. The number 1 cause of death is supposedly heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
The number cancer, that's curable.
Yep.
Heart attack's curable. What's the number 3 cause of death? The medical profession.
Western medicine. Yeah.
So what's really the cause of death? The medical profession. From heart attacks.
Right.
Because ask a doctor what CoQ10 is. Most don't know. Ask a doctor, is magnesium important to the heart? A heart doctor won't know.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, I see these systems crumbling.
Yes.
And they have to crumble.
And the light slowly comes in, and then it'll start just through osmosis. Again, like in David Hawkins, if you want to be spiritual, you hang out with spiritual people. So as more people are meeting people that are positive, that are happy, it affects them. Right now,
you broke up again, Jim. Could you repeat that, please? That last sentence.
Well, everything in mainstream media is negative. So the more positive people are, the more that when more and more people are realizing the medical profession is failing them, as they learn about alternative things, they also learn about alternative thinking. And they also, people like Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza, they are very, very popular now, even though they're suppressed. You never hear about them in mainstream media. But it is getting there. It's kind of like eventually the dam breaks. They're trying to keep the dam against ascension, against people waking up. But it's crumbling, like as you say. And these things are crumbling. There are more and more people that now know somebody that's been damaged by a vaccine. There are more and more people that say, well, wait a minute. So as that happens, I think the tide is kind of slowly changing, and this whole vaccine COVID thing may be like the law of universal law, that the dark energy it's generating, they're going to draw it back and draw it back. And then that's when because I know people that don't even believe there's a new world order. They don't even believe there's a call.
Right.
They don't even, they don't believe any of that stuff.
Yeah. With the Western medicine, it's almost like a seed, right? If before a seed becomes a tree behind you, it has to destroy itself, right? It has to destroy being a seed, and then it becomes something very different. It becomes a sprout. It becomes then a plant, a tree. And I didn't see Western medicine crumbling without this COVID pandemic. And now, and one of the first predictions I made about this pandemic was that Western medicine would fall.
Well, at the first of the pandemic, people were saying their loved ones that got COVID and died, they got them in the hospital.
Yeah.
Native Americans say, if you want to die, you go to the hospital. I mean, people are starting to realize
Yeah.
it failed. It's failing big time.
I've heard doctors say to people with COVID, don't go to the hospital, whatever you do. And
Well,
now,
people that recover don't go.
yeah. There, say that again, Jim. You broke up just a bit on that, please.
Oh, well, I've been looking at, I've known this number of people that had, what's called COVID. They've all overcome it. They've all gotten well. And other people I know that had COVID, or I've heard about that, they're good friends of other friends, and they wind up going to the hospital, they get worse. And then
Yep.
guess what? Next they're on what's that machine? They get 39,000.
Respirator.
Yeah,
Ventilator.
the ventilator.
When
Yeah,
you're on the ventilator, the hospital gets $39,000.
yeah,
And
And
as
then they
you
get paid for the.
and as you know, if they die of COVID, the hospital gets an extra $3,000.
yeah,
And the CDC had said, which I'm sure everybody knows, if you test positive for COVID and the test doesn't mean anything, and you die within 28 days, you're allowed to call it a COVID death.
yeah,
A friend of mine, good friend, is a fire chief up in Fremont, California. He had 2 heart attack cases that he'd wound up taking to the hospital in a one-day period. And then he read about it in the newspaper, and they said that these 2 heart attack people died of COVID. So he called the head of the hospital and said, hey, should my firemen and people and staff do something if they were exposed to COVID? And the hospital administrator said, no, they don't have to do anything. We just call it that. That's just one of thousands and thousands of testimonies of what's happening.
and now they're paying for your burial expenses up to $9,000 if you call it, if you die from COVID, and they're even allowing you to change your death certificate. And this narrative came out of them, certainly the Imperial College and Washington University, saying how many people were going to die, which you said at the beginning of the show, in the next couple of months if we didn't lock down. Those were completely inaccurate by very inaccurate, historically inaccurate people. But then once they got that word out and they got that fear out, they had to keep the fear up with the actual death numbers. And so that's why they were completely motivated to, make all the deaths COVID, and also send the elderly back into the nursing homes. Like you said, they're not traveling, they're not going out in the world, and but they're bringing positive COVID cases back into the nursing homes. This has been a genocide that is bringing on a solution to the genocide, and the solution to the genocide is more genocide.
Right, more genocide.
Yeah.
Well, but even with all they did, the mathematical fact up to this point, take any state, the amount in proportion to the population of America, there has not even been 1/2 of 1% of the population has died in a 2-year period from COVID. It's more like 300s. 1% of the population in a 2-year period is all that's died in COVID. And that includes their 94% comorbidity factor in there. So it goes way, way down. Now, if we're having a deadly pandemic, I want to see ambulances picking up my neighbors every week. I mean, I want to see them hauling bodies around. I mean,
do you have a neighbor of particular mind?
There's a few in Washington I'm thinking of.
Yeah, right.
I mean, come on, a deadly pandemic. I mean, when you have a 99% chance of surviving.
Yeah, it's insane. And did you follow, how you were talking about they all had the flu shot in terms of the populations that first started having problems with COVID? I also followed this, and I also saw a correlation to the 5G Have you looked into that?
Yes, in fact, I looked up and did some research. If anyone wants to look up and see what the symptoms are for short burst microwave radiation poisoning, they're going to find out they're the same symptoms and the same results as people that die on ventilators. The blood clotting, the destruction of the lungs, it's the same thing. So it's very interesting. I don't believe in coincidences, but the people that seem to be dying of COVID, the real serious ones, have the same symptoms that people that have short burst microwave radiation poisoning.
Yep.
Is that a coincidence? Now, the, I hate to throw it out there, but how about the Havana syndrome? I mean, is this because we all know 5G was a weapon, it was a bioweapon. Um, is it being used against Americans?
Well, if you would give us a quick update on the Havana syndrome, because I'm not
Well,
aware of it.
it started, I think, in Havana,
Oh, I
and
no, I do know this.
now
Yeah, go ahead.
I've had, I know I'm changing the subject, but because of things in Panama,
It was the
I've
embassy,
had,
right?
I've had real contact with CIA people, and they called them embassy employees, but CIA people in Havana started to have their mind messed with, their heads
Right.
messed with, really, really seriously. And then it started happening in other places. And at first they didn't know. Now they're called the Havana syndrome. One of the top guys from Washington is supposed to go to Colombia. He doesn't want to go to Colombia because it's happening around the world. But again, it's frequency. I mean, frequency can heal you. Frequency can kill you. I
Right.
think that frequency has a lot to do with COVID. I think that people are in a particular environment. I find it really interesting that some person comes out, they're totally against vaccine, they don't believe in COVID, they say it's a scam gimmick. How come all of a sudden they get COVID within a week or two?
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, coincidences?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't repeat themselves. It's like so many things they try to say are just don't work out mathematically.
Yeah. Yeah. And the 5G was also, it was launched in Wuhan. It was launched in northern Italy. It was launched in western Pennsylvania and New York. It was launched in Iran, where some of the hottest spots of COVID, emanated from. And are you familiar with Steiner's work, Rudolf Steiner?
A little bit.
He spoke of the virus as the cell becoming diseased, and the cell releasing the toxins to be carried from the bloodstream either to our skin to sweat out, to our respiratory to breathe out, cough out, or to our urine and feces to get out of our system. And also there was much talk about the 1917 Spanish flu as being the first time that radio waves began passing through, the frequencies began passing through the human body.
Right. There's been a correlation between technology and
Yeah.
new diseases.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not that familiar with the Steiner's work, but I will just throw in here one of the things about silver, if it's colloidal silver,
Mm-hmm.
it helps fight and counteract radioactive poisoning. It also, in fact, when I first started learning about it, was my good friend Eric heard him. 45 years old, died. My wife had cancer and died from it, so I started doing research. I found out on some of the cancer sites that a silver bullet for cancer was DMSO and colloidal silver because they will target cancer cells. And one of the reasons that silver is used in burn centers is like when it targets cancer cells, it kills the virus in the cancer cell, and then it restores the cancer cell to a normal cell. Now, chemotherapy and all that stuff, they just kill all your cells to see if you'll survive.
Right.
But with silver, it like if you have a cut and you put colloidal silver in the cut, instead of winding up with a scar, the silver, the healing cells are converted to stem cells, and then instead of becoming scar cells, they become skin cells. So you want, I mean, it's to me, it's a miracle thing. Even though when you look it up and try to find out, you're going to see different medical people saying the body has no need for silver.
Well, well, let's make that a segue, because Amy is my love, folks who Jim knows very well, goes way back with. She went to the co-op to get colloidal silver, and she asked the guy at the co-op she had heard that Whole Foods had stopped offering colloidal silver. So she called. He says, "Well, let me. I got a buddy that works over there. Let me call him." And he called him, and the guy said, "Yep, we stopped carrying it." And he said, "Why?" And he said,
used to
"Because
sell a lot of it.
they would sell a lot of it, yeah." And he said because people were coming in asking for it for COVID.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, yeah. Also,
Yeah,
also,
because people were buying it to cure cancer.
yeah,
We have several health food stores here called Gardeners, and they had some couple stores called like Fresh Market and stuff. They're like a Whole Foods, smaller scale.
hmm
They all have large supplies, and they sell a lot of colloidal silver. And I imagine Whole Foods sold tons of it because their section in there of colloidal silver used to be about 4 feet wide.
yeah,
The shelf.
yeah.
They had lots of it. Because I used to go in there and talk to them about it. They didn't know I made it. And they said, yeah, they sell lots of it.
Yeah, several different options too for it.
Yeah.
Jim, Jeanette Bach says, I can't have silver because of my kidneys. Are you aware of that issue? Or
No, I've heard a couple, and I don't know. I don't know everything.
yeah,
Some people say they're allergic to silver, but from what I understand, and I have a scientist that I consult a lot, colloidal silver, nanoparticle silver goes through the blood-brain barrier, and it can actually help kidneys and liver. Whereas if you have particulates of silver or like silver salts, silver nitrate or silver magnesium or silver whatever, that's where the people say, oh, you can turn blue. But the nanoparticle shouldn't damage the kidneys at all in any way. So I don't know why and haven't heard both. But you know what? I'm going to look it up because when I hear about something, I look it up to try to find is there any evidence anywhere. Now,
right.
Sloan Kettering, the cancer hospital, Mayo Clinic, medical cabal people will tell you, oh, colloidal silver, it can cause damage to your liver.
Right.
Never been able to find any, not one case. So I need to find a case of somebody. I mean, there is a case, the guy that turned blue, he made his own colloidal silver, the blue man, Mr. Smurf. And the big farmer paraded him out in 6 o'clock news and said, well, see, this guy turned blue. He's been taking colloidal silver. He'd put salt in his jar, and he'd make it the short process way. It wasn't nano. And then silver salts turned him blue. And they said, well, look what it did to you. It turned you blue. He said, yeah, but I've never been sick.
He took it for 14 years, every single day, and applied it topically to his skin.
Well, Dr. Stewart's been taking it for 25 years, and he's not blue. I'm not blue.
Yeah, yeah.
Blue.
I'm not blue.
I'm white. I'm old, wrinkled. But
I'm blue from the neck down right now. That's about it. So can we talk about and Jazz, I want you to, chime in any time here on some of these topics. I mean, I guess from your knowledge of everything that's going on, I'd really love to talk about, we're not doctors. We're not suggesting anything cures anything here.
We can't say it cures anything.
Exactly. And so, but what do you recommend with, your product and even other products that can really help people not only ward off all viruses, bacteria, things that make them sick, but also for those, if you have any thoughts about those who have already taken the jab, and what you would do if that was the case.
You mean if you took the jab and got sick, or?
Well, I guess the first protocol is keeping well, right? And then,
Well, one of the people that taught me about it, he offered $1 million in gold to any medical person that could prove that a flu vaccine
excuse me,
was more effective than colloidal silver. $1 million in gold. He's dead. He died at 55, supposedly. All I can say is that I learned a lot from him. He was right about a whole bunch of things. He was making it for Dr. Lynn Horowitz with his Coast to Coast show, and Dr. Lynn Horowitz said he was going to, blow the thing open and turn people on to it, Coast to Coast. Well, the FDA shut that down real fast.
right?
Dr. Oz on his show talked about colloidal silver. When the Paltrow was on, she says, I take a spray bottle with me everywhere, and when I'm flying, I spray, and I spray a couple times on the plane. When I get off, I spray, and I don't get sick because I use it all the time. Well, the medical profession came after Dr. Oz just for saying those things. So, but if people stay well, they should research and find out. We have a website that we're going to be developing that's a strictly informational website, and we hope to, by the first of the year, have maybe quarterly a newsletter that will go out to people, and we have to figure out, how we're going to do that and get it out. But it will have resources. It'll have references. I mean, Jasmyn's constantly asked. A lady the other day wanted to know about how's colloidal silver with cancer. So Jasmyn sent her the references. So, go to cancertutor.com. Go to this, go to that, because people don't seem to know how to research. So we're going to be putting a lot of our research up,
Great,
as a references for people, and also, giving them the information, because people just don't seem to know how to do it. Now, when I research now, I use DuckDuckGo a lot.
we do
If
too.
you use Google
Yeah.
and you put in colloidal silver, you're going to get 6 pages of lies and misinformation.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard to find any truth about it. You have to really know what to ask.
Yes.
So,
And that's why I think people have a difficult time researching, because it is the results are so controlled
yes,
in the direction away from true health.
yes,
And if anything has reared its ugly head this past year and a half, it is the allopathic and pharmacological medicine, and where people are now questioning that greatly, which is a very, very good thing to do. And then they're looking for alternatives. But when they're looking for alternatives, there's a bunch of misinformation out there to guide them, away from this. On the indoctrination site, you've been providing the Snedheads with just great products for a very long time. But under the marketplace, we have a link to connect with Jasmyn here under the Saint Solutions under Marketplace or under Market. And then it goes and takes you the homes and then the products. And it's basically, this is the main thing that you're doing. Could you tell us a little bit about what makes Saint Solutions different? First of all, we talked about initially certainly the benefit of silver in general, and we could talk a little bit more about that, but also about how your product is different than what somebody could get off the shelf in some different. Now you can't get it at Whole Foods. They're making that just like they're trying to get us away from, hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and things that may help COVID. They're trying to get us away from things that keep us healthy, like the silver.
Well, that is one thing about silver where the FDA is kind of right. I mean, when I first made colloidal silver, I just bought a little cheap $100 generator and used a couple wires. I didn't know about zeta potential. I didn't know about the nanoparticle creation. But from reading, the silver is made using Dr. Emoto's protocols because Haddo frequency and him healing just by re-engineering and changing water. So the really important thing is the water. So we structure the water so it's very, very teeny molecule clusters. It's also has rife frequencies, the healing frequencies. In addition to that, of course, we do our prayer things. We have certain other protocols. But it's really a lot out. But our label is the label is made because I wanted people that were ready to wake up or awake to take a look at the label and say, hey, I think I'll try this one. Oh, what's this? Oh, why is the Pleiadian beam ship on their label? Oh, why is Isis, the goddess that taught healing and spirituality, why is it on the label? Oh, why do these pyramids, there's a big message there that's kind of, we want to trigger people to realize it's all about consciousness. It's all about frequency. It's not about selling some water with silver in it. So, and that's what we hope to do and increase the things. And of course, you can't see some of the little things on here and but everything there connects. So anybody that is here as a star seed or had been in Atlantis or Egypt will resonate and recognize they're being given a message.
Mm-hmm.
And what did those people do? They use gold and silver. I mean, the original purposes of jewelry and gems is all frequency, and all for immortality, all for health. They didn't have doctors. They didn't need doctors. One thing that's interesting, and I won't say anything else about it. I did want to mention to you, in case you have someone that might have an interest in it, with the new electrum I'm making, because electrum helps repair the pineal gland. The pineal gland is also releases what some people call the God molecule, or DMT. So I'm thinking somewhere along the line, maybe there's someone that can help move it up to a different frequency where there would be a DMT enhanced electrum for particular people that were ready for it, that are want to wake up another notch or something. I don't know the end goal. That's just kind of a little thing that's been going on in my mind for several days. Because I think that these things, if you're healthy, you can wake up. If you're sick, it's really, really hard. Now, if you're sick, you've attracted a lot of sickness to you because you aren't healthy.
Well,
I mean, you're already healthy before you're sick.
Right. And that's about frequency, right? When you're healthy, you're resonating in a high frequency. That's why we've gotten into Healy, that Jazz introduced us to as well, about creating the frequencies and having a little bit more control over our environment, because our environment is being controlled. And between 3G, 4G, 5G, and Wi-Fi and smart meters and radio frequencies and streaming Netflix movies through your body, it's just kind of crazy when we think about the invisible pollution that we are subjecting ourselves to every single day. and and so it's so important that we take measures to get back to the frequency we're meant to be at. Whether it mean getting out and going barefoot and getting sunshine and getting fresh air and touching the earth and touching trees and touching plants and eating leafy green vegetables and silver is a natural mineral. And maybe speak to the why we need it in our body. Why do we need silver?
Well, the medical profession says we don't. My thing is,
which means we do.
Which means we do. Is that what else do you have that can kill the virus that's in the cell and heal the cell, or have the cell revert to a stem cell? So in other words, if you have things like silver and gold, your cells can become basically immortal, because what makes them die? Exhaustion through bad vibes. That's what Bruce Lipton would say. But basically, it kind of is. And a while back, I wasn't sick. I haven't been sick for 20 years, but I just was this feeling, probably what a lot of people were like, oh my God. Some people call it ascension symptoms, but I believe it's because our morphogenic field, our collective consciousness over the last 2 years has gotten so toxic.
Yeah.
These the mainstream media and these powers that be, that they've turned all these masked zombies into hating, angry, fear-generating machines. So you're out there, and I don't like to go. I don't associate with too many people, but when you go out there, that's what's being generated. At first, I went to Costco when I first started because I just wanted to watch all the people buying toilet paper. I thought that was really funny. but then I reached the point, I'm not going to go out there. The energy's too bad. I'm going to have to come home and take a half a dozen showers or something. Our field is so toxic.
We do, we do silver when we fly. We spray it on our masks. We spray it and breathe it in. We spray it on our hands and we wipe down all the areas around us. And we do it throughout the flight. And then when we get off the flight, and so we make sure it's in our system when we're exposed to the outside world right now. We used to do that anyway. Like before COVID, we did that with silver on the airplane. Because, there's flu viruses floating around. There's cold viruses. There's everything inside this little tube up in 30,000 feet in the air, recirculating this air. And it's like, okay, we're going to do it anyway.
Oh, I used to get sick coming back from China, 16-hour flight, years ago. I used to get, I've had hepatitis twice. I had dengue fever, 2-3 times. Food poisoning about 9. I've had all kinds of things before I learned to be well. And I used to get sick quite a bit from flying on planes. And one time, I didn't know if everyone was going to wind up alive or not, but I was in Korea. We were coming. They said, okay, let the women with small children through first. So I felt this heat near me. And I turned, there was this little Korean lady with 2 babies, one in her arms, another one about, 3 or 4 years old. They were both red as beets and had sores all over them. They were 2 really, really sick kids, and they, come brush up. I said, geez, I wonder what they have. Now they're putting them on a plane with I don't know, 200 people.
Amazing.
But you should always have it when you fly, or if you go somewhere that's packed with people and spray it. We came out with a face mask spray for children, because children don't, parents don't know what's going on. And when you're breathing warm air into a cover that's moist,
Yeah.
you're growing bacteria. It's like a petri dish. So
Yeah.
a kid wears a mask several days. Now all he's doing is breathing bacteria in. Then he gets infected. Now they say he has COVID. He doesn't have COVID. He has a face mask infection.
Well, there was more infection from people died of the Spanish flu from infection more than they did the actual Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Because everyone was masking up and breathing in their own air.
Yeah.
So to find your product, could you talk to us about just about how the prayers involved, the emoto, the love involved, and just take us through like a bottle of, and I don't know if you want to show us anything, that's open as well. I'd happy to, but just take us through the production. I know you've delivered a lot of this to the Snedhead Nation here, and I've heard no negative thing about any of it, and people just raving about your product. So
I really do need to get off mentioning this, but I will next time. But I'll tell you basically how it starts.
Right.
And how it started. We used, and if you wanted to research Marcel Vogel, which worked for IBM, but he's the one that invented the Vogel crystal, which is and teaches how to program crystals. So when I first started out, I took a lot of crystals. I worked on programming them, worked on imprinting them with because I have a Rife machine with Rife frequencies. So then right now they're made, and I'll do this next time when we can move the camera and show you. But we have a bed of crystals, and each of these crystals has 150 to 200 hours of programming in it. And then of course it's also put in the water, and then on our jars, and we say words, but we also on the jars have the love, gratitude. I mean it's just words, but it has frequency. Right. So they're surrounded by frequency. It's in a room what we call the crystal room. That in the whole room is crystals, all over the place. Part of it is alchemy, because the problem is, and especially with gold and things, is we're doing some things on an atomic level, and we can't measure it. So I don't really know. Someone fired a gun, so
he doesn't like gunshots.
With silver, see, I don't know. I have to figure out how to really explain it, but we have to measure like in microsiemens, and
you froze up on us. And we will be wrapping this up very, very shortly here. But I wanted to get some last words from Jim. So hopefully, Jim, you guys can come back in here. You froze up there. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Folks, if you would like to check out Saint Solutions, just please go to theindoctrination.com. Hundreds of Snedheads have ordered Saint Solutions and absolutely love it. And it's literally the prices that people were paying on Amazon and in home, or what do you call it, the Bezos's company, Whole Foods, before they stopped carrying it because people were asking for it for COVID, was their prices, Saint Solutions prices, are equal to or better than. And you just would not believe the amount of love that goes into it, and so it's buying local, it's buying American, it's supporting Jasmyn and her father Jim, who are dear friends and really good people, and that to me, is the future of our economy, my friends, is to support good people, support people who are awake. If you go to the market and you just pull up and scroll down to Saint Solutions and click on Find Out More, you can reach out to Jasmyn right here through her email. You can also see their products, and they've got a spray bottle, 4-ounce, 1632. They structure the water a la Emoto. It's prayed over, like you heard. There, it's in a crystal room. And it's just, this is all about frequency. You don't need to look into it anywhere further than the actual frequency that the silver is being introduced to. And it's nothing but fabulous frequency, and that's what a part of what makes it so effective. So thank you all who have already ordered Saint Solutions. And Jasmyn has gone to South Carolina to be closer with her father, Jim, who is a dear friend of many, many years, decades. And I am honored that Jim chose to join us today, folks, because he is just such a great man, an amazing chef, an amazing awake human being, and I'm just so glad that he joined us. And I think we're richer for having listened to a man like him. And if you look at what our mainstream is doing, what our cabal is doing, they are killing the elderly. Why? Because they're taking a toll on our resources in terms of supporting the elderly, although that's not Jim. But they're also trying to take them out because of the wisdom that they hold and the wisdom that they can share with the rest of us. And if they can get rid of those people, either by taking their minds, speaking of metals, talk about a toxic metal to the brain, fluoride and aluminum, those are getting to our brains. And those are stealing the memories away from the elderly through Alzheimer's and dementia. And if you look at what's going on in the bloodstreams of those people that have gotten those diseases, you will find that they are indeed have high levels of aluminum, mercury, and especially aluminum in their bloodstream. And of course, fluoride on their pineal gland to calcify their pineal gland. So the key is to get the good stuff, and that is the silver, the colloidal silver at a nano level, at a fabulous level, and that's what you'd find with Saint Solutions. So please check that out on theindoctrination.com. Thank you, Jasmyn. Thank you, Jim, for joining us today. We will do that again because I want to dig a little bit deeper. And I do want to also share with you, friends, that M. Seeker of Truth, who did the video, 30 Reasons Why I Don't Trust Charlie Ward, that I shared with some others in the truth community, and was thus kind of persona non grata with several in the truth community because I shared it with them. And now I did an interview with M. Seeker of Truth, and he is absolutely a fabulous interview, and he has just posted that up just an hour ago on YouTube. So if you want to go to M. Seeker of Truth, you will see our logo, the indoctrination. M interviews David Snedeker, part 1. So this is part 1, and he's going to release part 2 tomorrow. Very honored to have been interviewed by M, because I think he's doing some fantastic work, and he's basically doing something very powerful, which is holding those in the so-called truth community accountable for their actions and their mistruths. And so I welcome you to check that out. That's M Seeker of Truth on YouTube. Please go and show some love to M. It's already got 236 views. It's only been up 56 minutes. Please subscribe to him. Let him know you're a Snedhead. He's quite aware of all of you and our community, and respectful of our community. And I also want to share somebody else that we talk about in the show, and that is that is a very, very funny lady, and she goes by Intel Lady. And so after the interview, you're going to hear us talk about her. I highly recommend that you go to Intel Lady. Right now, she's got 1,160 subscribers. Snedhead, see if we can double that for like right away, would you? I would really appreciate that. And certainly there's about 500 on right now. If you would please do that, because there's somebody else who's holding the truth community to task and to truth, and very much appreciate that. And it's hilarious, just hilarious stuff. So that's all I have for you today, my friends. Thank you for joining me. For those of you who did, if you will, please share this out, and it would be great. And let me know what you think about the interview with M. It'll be, again, you'll get to see me today and tomorrow on my days off, because M was kind enough to conduct this interview. And let me know what you think, and I'll see you again on Monday. Again, thanks to Jim and Jazz, and love you both and love you all, and be well. And we'll talk very soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.